Okay, I think we should get started. I'll just open things off, and then I know we're here to discuss. So, a couple of things. I had been trying to keep up to some of the concerns that you have raised, and so at least I'm familiar with the issues, and so we're going over a lot of the things that were shared. And I want to let you know I wanted to make sure we had this discussion, and so I know scheduling is always difficult. I'm glad that we made at least this work for some of us. I know we all have. I've got my kids I've got to pick up at school, and we all have things going on in our lives, so I just appreciate everyone for taking time out to discuss some real important issues. So, as people know, I am here to listen, I'm here to learn. I also know that I have to make decisions, and so I want to have a true discussion. I want to hear what you have to say, and also, hopefully, at least explain a few things, which people may or may not agree with, but at least own up to being your mayor, which is what I'm elected to do. And so I think with that, you know, I believe in this sort of space and community discussion, so I don't want to go too far without hearing from you. But I do want to mention that this is important enough for me that I wanted to also bring in some important city leaders who are involved in things like this. And that, I think, matters in the sense that when we have James Lewis, who is our personal senior advisor on all the DOJ reforms and over at ABQ here. Thank you, James, for coming. And then Sarita Nair, who literally runs our city, so she is the top of all of the employment and everything. You know, she's the city manager, basically, is what that role is. We also have some folks, too. I think you've met Alan Armijo's been here a long time. Also, because this is such an important issue, literally the individual in charge of policing in the field in our city is Chief Medina. And so Chief Medina began community policing in the early 90s. He was the one who actually started it here. One of the reasons why I hired him back is so we can get back to it. And so that's why Chief is here. And so I know he oversees literally all of the field officers. So every officer that's not doing detective work, basically, or administrative work. And so that's why he's here today. And so I appreciate everyone coming. And Celinda, I want to just thank you for helping with logistics and so forth. So, if you guys want to, you know, I would say if we could try and raise issues, we'll talk about them and keep going through all the issues that we can. But rather than having, you know, one person just speak for an hour, let's try and give everyone a chance to speak. And also, if we've talked about something, even if we don't agree, let's at least go to another aspect of it. And we'll just take it from there. So, I don't know if, Celinda, where you'd like to go next.
So, I first want to thank all of the community for being here today on this really important issue with really short notice and, you know, in the middle of the day on a weekday. So one of the requests from many community members who couldn't get here was that they hope that you'll do this again, maybe in a week or so, if you're willing, and in an evening or a weekend. So I just wanted to state that was a big request that came from the community for it to be more accessible, and hope that you'll do this again. I don't want to talk a lot today. I think you've been here with me for a long time on this issue. You know, I respect that during the campaign you spoke out against this. You know, I personally have people who are behind the walls right now fighting for their life because of what happened to our community. I have serious concerns and fears about having this person in leadership, Damon Martinez, in leadership at APD, and what impacts he could have on my community over again. So I don't want to, this is not for me to talk about all of that, but I'm here as a spokesperson for the people that are behind the walls right now fighting for their lives, facing 20 to life because they were targeted because of their race by this person who brought this sting operation here knowing that it was a racial targeting. So I'm here as their voice, and I want you to feel them and hear them through me. And now aside from that, I want to open it up for everybody else, because a lot of people had some other really important things. And you know, speaking, I was an HR manager for the city for a very long time. I know about minimum qualifications for a position. I want to say that, you know, had Damon had to like apply for this job, probably he's not qualified. He has not done, he's not an expert in policy work. This is not his forte. So it makes absolutely no sense that, you know, a political appointee can be put into a position that he's not qualified for. So I think that also is a very, very serious concern.
Well, maybe let me just speak to a couple of those as best that I can. You know, in terms of his qualifications, you know, I have to tell you, he is an individual who, from at least my perspective, literally signed on to the settlement agreement with ABD. He is the individual who forced our department to deal with use of force issues. That is an extremely important qualification. He is a lawyer, which I am not. I think that also matters, and he has a track record of fighting civil rights issues. He has a track record of dealing with sexual assault issues at UNM, all in line with my values. And I think, you know, to say that he's not qualified, I would really respectfully disagree. I believe we needed someone, and this was the position description, we needed somebody who knows the department, so it's not there, you can't do this kind of work if you're brand new. And we need someone who knows the criminal justice system in our community, and I think he is extremely well qualified for that. He was appointed by President Obama. I mean, he was confirmed by our US Senate, so I believe he is very qualified for that position.
That he's abused his power in the criminal justice system against the community, and APD had a role in the federal sting operation that he executed on our community. That's why he knows it so well. So he knows it from a perspective of harming the community, not as an asset to the community. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the fundamental issue, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I believe, number one, I still believe that the way that operation was handled was wrong. I believe that there should be justice brought to what happened. I know that the ATF program is now being discussed through the courts, and there are going to be judges who are going to rule on this, and that's good, because I believe the ATF is responsible for that. And I think the disconnect that we have, and we may never get over, I do not think Damon personally, knowingly said, do a racial profiling activity in our town. I don't believe he did that. And I will tell you, if there's a judge that actually says that he signed off and condoned racial profiling, that is a major issue, and I will hold him accountable for that. But I don't think we can just speculate about that. And let me just say this. I hold ATF accountable, and I will continue to do that. And I also hold APD accountable. And I know that we have literally written policies and eliminated that kind of policing to the best of our knowledge in our department. And that's my job. What happens with the court case and the ATF, he didn't run the ATF. And I don't run the ATF.
So just so that you're aware, because you're not speaking to somebody who's not well versed in this and who has not been actually helping the people behind the walls work on their cases. For having the audacity to ask for this racial element to come out into court, the feds went ahead and asked for life against Yusef Casanova because he had the audacity to pursue discovery to out what Damon Martinez did. And we know that Damon asked for this sting operation to come here. And he did so knowing that other cities had already complained about the racial targeting in this operation. He knew that when he brought them here. The first federal CI that he sent to our community was sent to Juneteenth in 2016. He knew precisely what he was doing. He lied about arresting white people. They put 11 white people into the data. 9 of them we have been able to prove are fictitious. They don't exist. So there's no way he can say this was not racial. During that time in 2016, the highest crime in the city was in the San Mateo district, a predominantly white district. He didn't send them there. He brought 5 CIs, 3 black and 2 brown, and he pointed them at our community. So for him to try to somehow twist this, or for you to say that this racial, or he didn't know that it was going to be a racial attack. That's not true. He called us fish in a barrel. He said that my community here in the Southeast, that we're like fish in a barrel. It's so easy to do mass arrests in this community. So I'm sorry, here, we'll let others.
And I respect your expertise, and I also know that you know these details better than I do.
And that's why we're here, because we want to give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe you don't know all of these things about this federal sting operation or Damon. And so that's what this is about.
And that's what I do take very seriously. And I just know that I believe, and I think we're gonna, I don't know how to reconcile the notion of what he personally did with what the ATF did. I believe, and I'm saying believe because I don't know for a fact, I believe and hold ATF accountable for that. And I know that, I don't know who's in charge of that or who ran that program. That's who I believe should be responsible for what you said. And I believe that if a judge comes out with exactly with what you said, that is totally wrong. And I believe that if it is true, in fact, that the individual Yosef is being punished because of bringing this issue up, that is completely wrong. But I know this, I have a job to fill at APD that is a policy advisor job. I see a qualified individual, and I think he deserves a chance to fulfill our vision as a city. So Damon's job is not to import anything. It is to literally follow the vision that I articulated on the campaign. It is to follow orders from our CAO and our chief of police. He is an advisor. So I am not concerned about any kind of this coming into APD somehow with him. That will not happen. And if it does, I'll take care of it. And then it's actually my fault. And so I understand and respect these issues, but I have to look at what we're trying to do as a city going forward. And there's a qualified individual for a position, and I think we should give him a chance.
So what I hear here is very credible representation of facts.
Yes.
What I hear over here is I'm not willing, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not willing as the hiring manager to do the due diligence to search this out.
Yeah. When you say, well, it was the ATF, he was over that. And when you say, well, if he messes up, it stops with me, well, then why not the things that messed up under him? Why didn't that stop with him? Right? The buck should have stopped with him. And why, if Damon knew all of this was wrong and he didn't know what was going on, why isn't he fighting to get those people out? Why hasn't he been fighting to reverse the mistakes that were made underneath him? He hasn't done anything except for justify what happened.
Well,
that's not good.
He was fired by President Trump. Let's be clear why he's not doing
Hold
that. I know, but I'm just saying.
He was speaking out publicly about what happened, that this happened under him.
Okay, so just so everybody in the room understands, I know that that was his talking point during the campaign, but what I know about, because I've been working in this element for a very long time, it's something that happens every time there's a new president. Every U.S. attorney across the United States submits their resignation, and that president decides who they're going to keep or not. President Trump did not say, oh, Damon, you're so progressive and radical and so left that I can't have you in this place. That's not what happened. Most of the U.S. attorneys were let go by Trump. So this is not because Damon's so stellar, like was so about the people, or it was nothing like that. It's just part of the process. It's just like directors of the city. When a new administration comes in and moves all the directors out and brings in their new directors. That's what happened. So let's just speak with what the realities are.
True.
That's not real. So we don't want the talking points from his campaign. We understand everything about what happened with Damon and who he is.
Okay, well, look, I'm here to defend hiring Damon. I'm not here to defend everything that happened in his past job. And I think that is a distinction that matters.
I thought you were here to listen to the community.
I am here to listen and discuss. And I said this has to be a two-way conversation. And I think we're doing a good job of that.
Okay.
So I take your point, though. I mean, fair enough. But all I'm trying to say is he's not there now. And so that is a fair question. And you can ask him that question. And he can answer it however he's going to answer it. But I know what I need. I need him to do the job that I hired him to do. I'm just telling you that. And he's no longer in that job.
Okay, Mayor Keller, I want to interject just a different perspective as someone who worked in the Federal Public Defender's Office for a good number of years, along with Felice Garcia's husband. And I do not know the specifics about what Celinda is talking about, but what I want to sort of have you regard is what I consider to be a very rigid prosecutorial mindset that Damon Martinez exhibited when he ran for CD1 in the primary, which is something that is very, very difficult to change. It becomes hardwired. It doesn't matter whether he's a Democrat or a Republican. The nation has seen a number of very brave, innovative prosecutors who are willing to recognize that what the work that has been done over the past 20 or more years in the federal justice system is one that has a disparate and horrible impact on communities of color. And he had the opportunity, in my regard, to change that when Eric Holder came in. When the Obama administration said, it's time to change this. We've got too many black young men in prison. And he didn't do that. And to me, his test was this sting operation. And he is at the apex of power as the U.S. Attorney. And so the buck does stop at his door, whether it's ATF or anyone else. And he just did not have the courage to change that culture that permeates especially federal prosecutors. And I didn't see a change in that rigidity in his mindset when he was running for congressional district in the primary. And that is the thing that gives me pause, that he is not a good candidate for this office, and for this position in anything that has to do with policy. But that has to be coupled with the perception of the community. And the community is not accepting him. And that is extremely troubling to me. There's a large part of the community, and especially the community of color, that's not accepting him. And that needs to be given a lot of weight.
I would like to follow up on what Kuru just said, just build on that a bit more. With the consent decree, because of the history, why the consent decree eventually became crucial and necessary and was instituted, optics become more important. Normally we would say we want substance. We don't just want some window dressing, because the optics are just part of that window dressing. The thing is, however, because of that history, we are very sensitized to the very optics, to what we can see. And therefore, the whole history needs to be taken into account. It can't just be a snapshot of this person was involved in the DOJ consent decree, therefore this person is qualified, or anything like that. It needs to be seen in their totality as a whole picture. And it's not just Damon, because it's also the other dude who had all kinds of stuff going on in his background with excessive force. So now the two people that you are putting in, and please believe me, I wish you all the best. I'm really excited that you're in this position, because I feel the city actually stands a chance with you being there. But you're messing up that capital right now, because I'm thinking, oh, okay, here we go again. There was all the history of people with excessive force litigations, allegations, convictions, sticking to them, being promoted through the ranks. And now again, that top tier just doesn't sit right. So no matter what substance you're trying to sell to us and argue to us right now, the optics stink. And that's all we're seeing right now.
Let me touch on just those two, and then we can keep going. You know, I think I can understand absolutely your argument, and especially in the context of you know, congressional campaign and what that says. I can also understand that in terms of U.S. attorney appointment. I think it's important to understand what this is. He is a policy advisor. He has no direct reports. He reports to the chief, to Sri Nair. Every policy under my administration goes through a public process and has to be signed off. Every DOJ use of force policy is in James's wheelhouse, is my appointee for that. And so I'm not disagreeing with your concerns, but I know this. I do not believe that what you're talking about will come into ABQ. And when it comes to the notion of optics versus substance, I appreciate that distinction. I think you're right on that. I mean, I think that is core to the issue. I need substance in this job. The optics that matter are what APD is doing in the street, what APD is doing with the use of force. We have made more progress than literally since the history of all of this issue in the last year. And if this in any way harms that progress, then you will see a different approach from me. But I believe we are doing everything we can right now with use of force, and that has been verified by judges, by the monitor, and it's a credit to James Lewis and our police department. And I just don't feel, it's an opinion, I don't feel this changes the substance of that material or the optics of how our police department will operate.
The problem is, we haven't made any progress in this DOJ investigation since it began. Wait a minute, let me finish.
Sure.
We have a cowboy up mentality, I'm sorry, in APD of shooting people. We have this history, and black and brown and red people. We have more likelihood of being shot by APD than we do in some of the toughest neighborhoods, like my neighborhood in Albuquerque. It's scary to be a person of color in this city. And yeah, I look white, but I'm not. And I've lived here the vast share of my life. I've also lived in places like Anacostia and DC. It's worse here, even than it was in the 70s, when that was the cocaine capital of the entire United States. And you know what? We need to have somebody in this policy advising position who looks forward instead of has all this baggage from the past and looks to the past, okay, for his perspective on advising on policy, okay? I mean, sorry, I keep saying that. But this is important stuff. Albuquerque needs to be moving forward, not be burdened by all these errors from the past. We have a long way to go, and there's a lot of wounds that need to be healed between the powers that be in the city and the people of color in the city, the communities who have been seriously damaged by these policies, by the actions of the cowboy up mentality, by the things that have been done in the poorer, in the darker, in the less advantaged communities. And if it's not done, and if there isn't a perspective that moves us in that direction, what's the point of any of it? What's the point of the promises that say we're going to work with the people? There's no point, and it's just all hot air.
I think we have one more question back here.
And I just want to say his name, Daniel Ariola Saavedra, who was murdered by APD this year, who was shot with 52 times in his body. And I just want to say his name, and it happened this year, and I advocate for his family. And I just want to say that you can't look in the eyes of Daniel's family, of his father, and say that things are better. Our community is not feeling like it's better, so I just want to say that.
Well, I understand that we have a long road to go, and I have acknowledged from day one all of these issues. And I stood up in front of the judge and the community in every way possible and said that doing what I can and acknowledging that history, acknowledging that pain, in trying to change our department is why I asked for your vote to be in this office. And I will tell you that we do have a long road to go. But to say that we have not made progress is also, I think, inaccurate. I'm not saying we've made a lot of progress, but when you have the compliance record that you have, when we have the increased training that we have a civil rights office for the first time, we have an Office of Equity and Inclusion for the first time, we're doing anti-racism training for the first time, we have the DOJ for the first time ever saying that the administration is doing what they can to progress. And I'm just sharing with you, these are actual things. This is not hot air. This is literally what people like James Lewis spend their life doing right now. And also what our chief of police has been doing. And so I know we have a long way to go. And I believe that it isn't as bad and worse as everyone is saying. But I know this, our administration is committed to doing that. And this hire does not matter at all to them. Because the people in charge are our chief of police and our CAO and myself. And it's not going to change any of that.
I would like to, if I can see where you're at on this, this is what I'm hearing. Damon Martinez approached your office wanting a job. Was this job created for him, or was it already there?
That is not true, and I think that's why it's good to have a discussion. He did not approach our office for this job.
So you approached him?
I just want to clarify, I said I didn't remember like 100 times, and so, you know.
So you approached him for this position?
He needed a position. We need, basically it works like this. Everyone who is good and in step with what we're doing is getting vacuumed up by the DOJ by trying to address everything you brought up. And we have an entire department to run that is not just use of force issues.
So you went to him?
So I created the position.
Okay,
and I know that we need a ear to Mr. James Lewis. James Lewis is the senior advisor on DOJ use of force issues. And I need a senior advisor on everything that is not DOJ and use of force. We created that job, and then we started looking around and interviewing and talking to folks. And that's when we approached him.
And you approached him, and then you said, okay, we need you to come in and fill this position for us. But what I hear you telling me is that it's really not that powerful of a position. But then on the other hand, I hear you saying, but this is the only man that can do the job. So it's either one or the other. Is he the only man that can do this job, or is it really not that powerful and he really won't have that much power and he's going to have a lot of oversight? And I'm a little confused on that because it feels very much like doublespeak to me.
Gotcha. So let me be abundantly clear. He is not the only person for this job. I believe he was the best fit for this job. That's why he was chosen. He's not the only person, but I believe he is the best person for this job. And I also want, your second point about his role. His role is not, it should be very straightforward. So if I'm not being, let me just tell you, he has no direct reports, and he reports directly to the chief of police, who reports to Ms. Nair. And so that role is an advisory position. Is it important? Of course it's important. But to say that somehow he's in charge of oversight, even to say that he's in charge of policy, is not the position. I cannot pass any policy at APD without community input and without a judge signing off.
So he's just recommending policy for $118,000 a year?
He's working on all our work with the district attorney's office, and he's working on all of the issues that come up with the legislature in terms of tracking what they're looking at, providing our input, and so forth. These are very important roles, and that wage is consistent with that role. So okay. The wage has nothing to do with him.
Fair enough, but
yeah, so kind of speaking to a lot of different points. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Terry, I think outlined a lot of what I was going to say, and that in this climate, not only where we are as a country, but as a city, it seems to me that we need a completely new way of thinking, especially about policy. This this idea that only lawyers or people who worked, you know, in the Department of Justice or this can come up with policies. I mean, policies are being created by conservative think tanks for police departments. You know, it's sliding down the other way. Let's have policy, let's have people creating policies that are working in another realm. Yes, they should have legal knowledge, but a lot of times what happens is policies are written with the essential idea of eliminating liability, not helping communities. And I fear that this person is exactly that type of, that's where his lane is. He's said that, he's shown that by his work as a U.S. attorney, he's shown that by his work as a private attorney, and he's shown that in his platforms as a candidate who lost for his district. I just think that this is a watershed moment where you could turn the page and do something completely different, city different. You know, there's so many cities across the country that are looking for other ways to solve problems, and this just seems to be going backwards, or at the very least, not thinking out of the box. And not only that, and that would be just if he was, you know, a candidate on paper. He's not. He's been part of this community, and he's hurt this community extremely. I mean, emotions are, I mean, so I just don't know with this hire and with Leonard, the other hire, I just don't understand why you're fighting so hard for them. I just really don't.
Well, I mean, look, I know we have a lot to get through, but I want to have a two-way discussion, so let's talk about Leonard.
Can I just ask a question
Yeah.
before you do that? Because what I'm trying to figure out for all of us, because, you know, when there are different positions, people who disagree with the hire that has been made that you're standing by, what's the way forward? Because if it's not on the table to say that you're going to rescind that hire, and people are objecting to it, what does the discussion need to be? Because we can continue to talk about the reasons that there is disagreement, but where do we find a way forward if you're not going to change the position and people are upset about it? What do we do from this point? Yeah, I don't know if there is a happy medium, but how do we find a way forward? And I think that would be best for us to focus on that, to figure out how we, you know, resolve, because we'll be here till, you know, the cows come home.
Yeah. So let me try and address a couple of these and then get to your question. I know the chief wants to share a few words on that too, as well as James Lewis. So, you know, first thing, let me just say that the way I look at it is Damon is part of a team, and he is not in charge. And so his orders and his instructions and his job description are to follow the path that Sarita and I and Chief of Police articulate. And so I do think this is very different than voting for him for something. Like, he is now part of a team that he is not in charge of. And if he doesn't follow what the team wants to do, he's obviously not going to last. So it's a distinction that I think is important. And I think it's a distinction also that he has also been clear that he is not the decider. Whatever his approach was with prosecution, whatever the way he conducted himself in terms of some of these old or new ideas, that's not his choice anymore. It's ours. And he has to follow those orders, or it's obviously not going to work out. So the other thing that I do want to share about going forward, and maybe the chief and James can chime in, the notion of creative policies, innovative policies, everyone here has a chance to participate in. And I would really encourage you, we have multiple venues for you to do that. We have the community policing councils, which literally, that is the description of what they're supposed to do. And they are literally community policing councils. If you want to help, if you want to be the check, if you will, on Damon, if that's how you want to look at it. I don't think that's true, but if you want that, you have it. You absolutely have it.
We want leaders, we don't have to check them.
But here's the thing, I will. You don't have to, because I have full
You
confidence.
said something
in
that
what
rang
Serena
a serious
and I
bell
want.
to me that tells me outside of your leadership is that he's going to be working with the DA's office. He has not exhibited good conduct as a prosecutor, and now you're going to put him in line with the prosecutors.
He is not, I know, but he is not a prosecutor.
But he's going to work with them on prosecution. What else is he going to be doing over there at the DA's office on behalf of APD?
Damon Martinez is a prosecutor.
He is not anymore.
He will always be a prosecutor.
No, but I'm telling you, I understand that, but look, guys, some of these are facts. He is not a prosecutor for APD.
But he's going to work for the DA with the DA.
I know, but he is not.
If his record and his talents are so meaningless because he's not doing anything, then what are we paying him $118,000?
The other big question that is in the room that many of us have discussed is, was his position created with the tax increase, the safety tax increase that happened? That was supposed to be to fund more officers?
So every position is part of the entire budget, just so you know. So I mean, there is no specific tie.
But
Then you would know that
did it
there's
get funded with that new money?
every position is funded by that, by all of that money as
She
well
was asking that
as.
question kind of rhetorically, so she kind of knew the answer.
We already know.
She was asking that to
Okay.
see if you could
Yeah.
run the bush a little bit.
Why? I hope I answered it. Go ahead.
You know, I listen to everybody and I know that we're sitting here because of the past. We got to a very dark place in our community because there was a lack of communication and cooperation between the police department that I was part of and the community. I retired in 2014. I had a great life. I was chief of a police department out for the Pueblo Laguna. I had a small community, but I chose to come back because I wanted to make a difference. Because I believed that the department and the community needed to be reformed and we needed to work together. And I'm not going to tell everybody that they have to believe we're moving forward together, but what I would propose is I'd love to come in on a Saturday when everybody's off in a few weeks and give you a presentation of where our police department is and the advancements we have made in the last 9 months. I would love to tell you about how I believe in the cycle of education, the mayor believes in the cycle of education, how we're working with CNM to find kids in high-risk areas. I'm a first-generation college student. My sister went after me. My kids have gone after me. We want to create those. We don't want to create a safe community. We want to create a healthy community. And I think if we could communicate and work with one another and we could explain and get the details out of the path forward that we're trying to take as a community. So, because we can't do this as a police department by ourselves. We're going to need community volunteers. We're going to need help identifying kids that need. We're trying to implement programs with youthful offenders. We know the worst thing we can do is put an 18 to 24-year-old into the criminal justice system for a minor offense because it's going to create that cycle that sucks them into that system for the rest of their life. We're trying to work these programs, and this is where we can stand together and work because we can't do it alone. We need volunteers, we need help. Any Saturday, I'm willing to come in and give an update so everybody could understand where the police department is now because there still is a lot of unknown and misconceptions, and we have to get over the past and start embracing the future.
Just this summer, APD advocated for 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds to be bound over to the adult system. APD was pushing that narrative. If you want to talk about youth justice, I also work in youth justice.
I'll look into them.
Has APD stopped or disbanded the unit that has the approved affidavit from district court that manufactures and sells drugs to our community? Have you stopped that practice? You're talking about really good things here, but those are the things that are harming us, and that's what Damon's practices are too. So we're putting him in a department that's already doing that.
And one of the things is we have to have good, strong, perfect communication so there are no misconceptions. If you could get me a list of your concerns, I will sit us down with the right people so they could exactly answer your questions. That way there is no miscommunication, so we could get you the exact answers you need.
We have the
on-
affidavit copy from 2016 where you
So,
guys
but
got approval to manufacture drugs.
we're in
ABQ.
2018, there's been a change of administration. None of us were here in 2016. I wasn't here in 2016. It's really difficult
So it's
to
not
ask me to
happening?
answer for something that happened in 2016 when I wasn't here. That is, I am extending my hand and asking that we work together as a community and we get to know one another and we move forward. We forge a path forward. That's all I'm asking, and whoever is being.
Can you tell us if it
we will.
stopped? Did that practice stop?
Yes.
Yes, we
It
stopped
did.
that.
And
I
Chief
did-
Medina, I want to tell you, I have spoken with you several times, and I believe that that's what you want to do, and you have specifically said, these are the bad things that happened in the past, these are not going to happen anymore, we can move forward, I want to work with the community. I have not heard that from Damon. Never. Every time he's interviewed, he justifies what happened. He talks about how he wants things like that to continue to happen. That's frightening for the community.
Yeah, but Damon is now part of the chief's team. It doesn't matter what he said in the past in terms of what he's going to do in the future.
Damon just said that recently, though. In an interview.
Well, look, I will, whatever he has said since we hired him, I understand that. This is my point. He is not in charge. The chief is in charge.
So, I don't want to go too far afield here with this issue, but I want to know really if you are in charge of the police. And the reason I'm asking this is we could be giving you some cover here that the community is not going to support certain kinds of things and you can get out of things that you've been forced into, perhaps against your will. I don't know. But I'm just going to say Victoria Martins, the Garcias, Damon Martinez, this other hire, exhibit a pattern of confusion and distrust coming from our side in the community because somebody who stands up and says we couldn't accept evidence if those underpants belong to your daughter, that would have been a different story, I'm pretty sure. But the cover-up of that, starting out innocent, however you got to that place, and then however you're getting now to this place, to me, raises the question, who's really in charge? And are your hands being tied by people behind the scenes that we can't see? And I don't know how you can answer that question here in a public room, but I'm saying my trust of this entire thing is crumbling quickly. And the Damon business is really pretty much the pinnacle of bullshit for me. I really, you know, if it weren't for Celinda, that guy was leading in the polls. And he was destroyed by the community coming together and saying, never Damon Martinez. Now, you can go on and protect him and cover up and be honest and tell us you believe and you'll get him out if any of this stuff is going wrong. But we out here who supported you and support you, we are out here hearing people saying, boy, you guys are just fools if you continue to support this. How stupid do you think we all are out here? I'm not saying this from you, I'm saying people out there saying all you people still supporting Tim are really stupid to fall for this shit. And I'm sorry that to be sitting here saying this, but it is, I'm going to say at least 3 of us here in this room were taken out of the mayor's office by the SWAT team in 2014. And I'm happy to be in that number, and we are willing to go to boards again for this kind of stuff. We are not gonna take it. And I don't know, it appears there's no way out. I think we've had the best question of the day over here. How are we gonna move forward with this level of mistrust out here in the community and you saying, Damon's the guy for the job? How do we move forward?
And I'm just going to let you know my job is to make sure I get into the next 2 meetings, so we're getting close to the time. I didn't hear you. What? 3, but I'm sure you'll.
I'd like us to step back. A lot of us in the room want you to succeed. We like you. We like the things you were promising, and you've done a lot of good things, and that's why this is painful. But if we step back, if you have a broken department, like it's been so broken, and to me the #1 priority should be to restore trust. The community has to trust the police department. If you're going to have a police department, people have to feel like they can call 911. A lot of people don't want to call 911 because they think, you know, somebody with a trigger finger is going to come and maybe someone's going to get killed who shouldn't have been killed. So to me, the #1 goal you should have is to restore trust. This hire destroys trust in what you're doing. All the good things that you've been doing, all the hours you've spent, all the passion you've brought to it. It is so damaging to trust, to our trust and your vision. Because if Damon, if you can't prove Damon championed that sting, he's certainly suspected of it because it's all like hush-hush and in courts. It's in a court battle right now, right? That's what I just read in New Mexico in depth, right? So even he's suspected of spearheading that sting. So he's the last person that you should hire for any job at APD because of the message it sends us.
And can you imagine if you try to... Sorry.
Okay. I want to hear from everyone, but we also need to discuss this situation. And so, we're going to do one more. So, you know, look, I mean, I will tell you, I take to heart what you're saying. Like, I worry about the issues you're bringing up. I do. I absolutely worry about it. This is not, I didn't think that I would have to come here and talk about this with everyone here. Okay? I just want you to know I understand that. I also hope that you understand that, you know, saying never Damon, for example, I understand what that means in a congressional context. And if a judge comes out with what you're saying is true, I understand that too. But I also understand that we all have had jobs that have been up and down, and there's things that happen. And to say that about a person with that kind of hatred, if it turns out that a judge says that indeed that happened, I understand that and I respect that. But I think you have to reserve a little bit, for the fact that maybe Damon has a track record of working on civil rights, is the singular person who championed reform of APD. I'm just saying, I don't think it is a black and white situation. And all I'm asking for, you're asking, you know, who's in charge and has this, I will tell you this. I remember the underwear example very well. And I remember that for 2 weeks I was misled. And when I found that out, I changed it. And I owned up to it in the public. And if there is something here that is indeed what you're saying that comes out of these court cases, I will own up to it. But I think we have to allow for a judge to decide that. I find it, I don't think he should be condemned for life for anything.
What about the
just based without at least letting that be.
97% of federal cases result in a plea bargain because they don't get a trial where these things can be discussed. I'm just going to say it's not going to happen anymore.
Right here. All right. I think it's clear after however long it's been, a year or more that you've been in office, that what we have here is not a failure to communicate, as the saying goes, but rather that you don't give the impression that you're following through on your original promises. I think what a lot of people expected from you as the new mayor would be that you would not only identify major issues, but that you would take charge. And every time some crisis happens, you're always foisting it off onto somebody else. And I know that's difficult to be in your position. But I think that this is what people want. They want you to follow through on what you implied and promised in the lead up to the election. And I think in this case, you know, just the appearance of Damon's past with the DOJ and the sting and all that, regardless of what all the particulars are, You know, it just doesn't follow through that somebody who's under a cloud should be brought in, and no, he doesn't have authority because, you know, he's part of a team and so forth. So I guess what I would like to say is that, you know, this group is only the spearhead of the rest of the community. In the future, it might not just be, you know, 20 or 30 of us, it might be a much larger group, and people are starting to look towards 2021 as far as their choices. And I think you really need to be more proactive in a positive way, not just a reactive way.
Got a question right here to that. Just a few points real quick. One, I do want to acknowledge your presence and thank you. A previous administration probably would have done that.
Right. Yeah.
So I give you credit for that. I give you credit for that quick meeting we had the other day. Thank you. That's a great first step. You know, one of the hazards of being sort of a mayor candidate for the people, you have to deal with the people. We're tough to deal with sometimes. But I will have to tell you this. There's two things that really pop out to me about all of this. One is, as far as I can remember in my history of city politics, this is a highly unusual event. This is not something that happens all the time. So to me, it's more credible, the problem we're having here. I'm not really like this. And my reaction was similar to theirs. What's amazing is that without talking to each other, many of us had the same reaction instantaneously. And then what also is remarkable is there are people who I would say are not traditionally our allies who had the same reaction as well. So we can't all be wrong. Number two, there's something you did say that is very typical of a lot of other administrations with whom I've had issues with or leadership. In dealing with these kinds of issues, in this subset, one of your first defenses was, well, you know, he is a prosecutor, he has a fine record as a prosecutor. Yeah, I'm kind of tired of having a criminal justice system that seems to be run and politicized by prosecutors. There are fine people who work in the public defender's offices and administrations, and let me tell you, if they know the ins and outs of the failings of the police department or procedural things, because they take advantage of them all the time, it's there. Public, you know, but I never seem to hear people go right for the public, you know, like the defense side of the equation in seeking these kinds of things. So, I would almost recommend that if there's something else coming up to hire for, you might want to do that and publicize it so that you're showing that you're bringing balance to the force. Thank you.
So, and I know we should allow James and Sri to say a few words. I appreciate your point about a defender, and I do want to point to our city attorney who fits that category, and I think that's important to note. So with all of this that we're talking about, that is who I put in charge to be the city's attorney. The other thing I just want to mention, you know, in terms of campaigning and promises and commitments, I mean, I think, look, one thing is clear. I will take responsibility, Rob, so I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I have never dodged responsibility for anything. And me being here is taking responsibility, even if you don't like it. And so I understand if we disagree and this is a big deal, but to say that we're not taking responsibility, I think is just inaccurate. Now, with respect to what I believe I have to do, because of all the hard work and all the belief that you put in me, is that I actually have to reform ABQ. And I think that we are on the path of doing that. I think we have made more progress than has been made in years. And if this hire changes that, I think absolutely you deserve to be upset. I believe, it's just a belief, I believe this hire will not change that. That's all I'm saying. I, in many ways, agree with a lot of things you're saying, and I'm very concerned about it. But I know the higher calling and the higher promise that I made to you, and it is to reform APD. And if this hurts that, then it will not stand. But if it does not hurt that, I think we owe the folks a chance, especially these folks, to actually do what I ran on to do.
So I'm gonna stop right now because I was able to rearrange. The other people had made appointments with him to schedule back. So I'm gonna ask the mayor to wrap it up for his part, and these other people can talk so he can get to the other meetings.
I just want to say one thought to what you've been saying also is about him spearheading the DOJ. No, this community right here, the people who got arrested out of Barry's office, the people who we were protesting in the street, we brought the DOJ here.
Yeah.
Damon does not get that credit.
Yeah.
The community did that. The cry out of the community and victims of police violence is who brought the DOJ here, not Damon. So I hope we can fix that narrative as well.
That is a fair point.
And one more thing too, I hear you say process and progress is progress. Progress is simply in the eyes of the beholder. You may see a lot of progress, but I talk to homeless people all the time who just got kicked out of the only place they had to live.
Right.
Do you say that that same progress goes for them? In the same way it doesn't go for most of us. And another thing, the fact that you see all of us here lets you know that that hire is a horrible hire. And it should be something that you should be able to do to let us all know before you leave here that it's not going to happen again. You can't leave this meeting without letting us have some type of closure to a sense. Because obviously the only closure that I got from this meeting is that you're not going to change your opinion on the person who we're all so opinionated on. So since you're closing.
Well,
Vernon.
I think I've shared, I do not think I have been closed at all to what you've been saying. And I think I've been clear about what happens if the outcome is indeed what you're predicting. And I want to let James speak for a minute. I know and I appreciate it because there's another community too that also deserves time with the mayor. But James, do you want to share a minute and then I'll try and wrap it up.
So I just have a couple of.
And they'll stick around and continue the discussion.
I just have a couple of specific things to Steve's point, like the city attorney was a plaintiff's lawyer, but the city attorney who's assigned to full-time to APD DOJ reform did come from the public defender's office for exactly that reason. So I don't know that many people know him because he pretty much is chained to his desk working on this stuff all the time, but his name is Jeremy Schmiel. He came out of the local public defender, not the federal public defender's office. But I did want to say that we share those values, and same thing with the homeless situation. This is our #1 initiative from our office coming into the winter is to try to construct an emergency shelter and find an interim strategy for that to fund behavioral health services. And so I also have a hard stop.
Blankets and tents. I put them in the trash.
If I may finish, please. You've already heard from me too, and you've already talked to me, so I have a hard stop, but you're not going to hear anything different from me. I just would hope that ultimately, to Ms. Miguel's question, it's just like any other appointment, any other director, any department. We hold them all accountable for producing the results that we hired them to produce. And the way forward in doing that is the same as it is for everyone else, except I think in the police department there are a lot more avenues actually to connect. You don't just call 311 because you're unhappy with solid waste. You have, as the mayor mentioned, you have your community policing councils, you have the police oversight board. I saw Mr. Witt's come at some point. And there are so many forums. We have a town hall coming up. We have all the DOJ public hearings. So there are many, many, many ways to give your input into what's happening in APD, and so that those of us whose job it is to hold them accountable can do that.
And if I could just say a couple of things, I don't know all of you, but I know a lot of you. Again, my name is James Lewis, and retired state treasurer, but I also sit in the position that Sarita has now with Mayor Chavez, and recall sitting in this neighborhood talking to Albuquerque and Clifton and a whole bunch of other folks about the crime that was in the area. So, again, you have different issues, and as a kid growing up in South Broadway, I'm very familiar with the city. This Highland area used to be Albuquerque and Highland, where Highland was considered the elite school. So as we looked at the changes in all these areas, and I just want to say I really have the utmost respect for the mayor. I have the utmost respect for the community because as you see things you want to speak out on, you speak out and speak up. But let me just say, when he came in the police office, in the police department, looking here, looking over here to change the leadership. Let me get rid of all the majors. So this man has done a lot to affect change within this city here and the city of Albuquerque. The police department, I'm a former military policeman myself, former criminal investigator with the DA's office, with under 2 DAs, Ira Robinson and Steve Schiff, and understanding this criminal justice system is not the easiest thing in the world. So everybody has an opinion on what they think they know, what is wrong, what is right. I come around to all the CPCs and they say, well, why do you fund the DA's office? Well, the whole criminal justice system, the public defender's office, they've been underfunded for years and years and years. But I was up in Santa Fe serving on the State Investment Council, the State Board of Finance, and the governor was saying, okay, well, I'm going to fund the state police and a couple other, but they didn't fund the rest of the system. So comprehensively, the mayor is looking at this. We have to look at the poverty that's coming in. We're going to look at prevention. We're going to look at intervention. Those are the types of things, because we get upset with a hire, and I can understand that. But if this man hires 50 people, then he hires one that you don't like, I'm not sure that's right either. And I'm of the opinion that you're innocent until proven guilty. So you ought to give an individual an opportunity to see if he can do what the mayor has asked. And there's but one mayor. He's the elected official. He's the one that got elected to run that office. You had to trust. We said, we're going to trust you to do it. And I'm just asking you to give him an opportunity to do what he said he was going to do. The last thing that I want to say in regards, because we're talking about reforms, he's asked me to come and be the civilian eyes in regards to the reform going on with DOJ. We're going to have a town hall meeting, these flyers out, because he believes in transparency. And when we say the definition of community, it's a lot more community than us sitting in here. And so the whole community, this whole city, there are so many different factions in here. And if you bring 50 different groups in here, we have 50 different opinions. And so what we're trying to do in the reform is that we're going to have the mayor, we're going to have DOJ. DOJ is going to come in here and they're going to tell us how this occurs, what is going on, what it's all about, what the ABQ is all about. And they're also going to have the monitor come in here to talk about his role. So we want to give the community an update. And this is November the 10th, and it's going to be 2 to 4. I brought these flyers so we can extend an invitation to all of you to come out and see what's going on. Because I heard that statement, and I've heard it in some of the CPCs, no progress has been made at all. This man has made a tremendous amount of progress in 1 year.
Just to speak on what I said progress is through the eyes of the beholder. So we all acknowledge.
Well, I'm clarifying what my perception of what the monitors. The only way we can get out from under this is that the judge has to make the decision. The judge is saying the progress. It's not me, and that's why I'm inviting you to come out and see what the judge is saying, or the monitor is going to say. The judge won't be there, and then they're going to have a court hearing where all the amici is akin to this. That's going to be December the 7th. In the federal court building, and it is a public meeting. And all the amici, the 6 of them, they will be reporting to the judge of what is going on and what reforms have been made. So we have to retrain every police officer in what we call constitutional policing. Constitutional policing meaning that person that is homeless out there has the same rights as the President of the United States. And so that's what we're doing. We have to train them and retrain them in that area. So I just wanted to clarify a couple things. I will pass out some of these flyers.
Respectfully, sir, there's representation in this room of probably more than 50 organizations that are all around on this issue. You are hearing from a great number of the community. I could go around and you could hear from everybody on the table.
I want that to be clarified with Selena as well. You made it seem like we're all one group of people, and there's 50 different groups of people that will have 50 different opinions, and I want to let you know that I come from a different group of people than most of these people here. I'm representing veterans in this city, combat veterans. So that's one group. And there's others.
There are some.
I understand.
Okay, so final, what is your next steps?
So listen,
Next steps.
I believe in the fact that we need, I need your help, and I know you're trying to give it to me. I understand that, okay? And I also understand that a lot of you think this is a big mistake. But let me at least make one request. I need you to be involved in the DOJ process, okay? It doesn't matter whether you represent 100 groups or you don't. The NAACP is in this, we have a lot of churches involved in all of this, and there's a lot of people who aren't involved. But
respectfully, sorry, we have actually been involved.
yes, and I want to acknowledge, you helped bring them here, okay? And so I want to continue that discussion as that process. There is at least a monitor and a judge who theoretically can at least say if we're doing good or bad. I don't know if it's good or good, but I want to say I want your help on that. And I would ask you this, if you are angry and you want to fight at least fight for a policy, fight for something that APD is doing, fight for an outcome.
Why are you so condescending to us?
Yeah, we are the fighters. We are the people of the community who organize.
This is us fighting for not firing somebody who racial profiles.
Are you willing to fire Damon Martinez? Are you willing to let him go and remove him?
You told us
Are you willing to?
there's a problem. Well, why? It's not. This isn't a court of law.
Just next steps. Back to Kathy's question.
This is
Are you
a
willing to
job
let him go?
interview, just like we've seen.
Yeah, I'm here, I took this because I believe in this concept, and I will continue to believe in it. And I also believe that some of you completely disagree, and that is okay, but I respect it, okay? I'm going to give him a chance. If anything plays out in the courts that you're describing, I will definitely take action, and if reform is delayed in any way, I will take action. But other than that, I believe in giving him a chance, and I believe there are much other things that I need your help on, and that is coming from respect. That is me as a mayor asking for your help on other things.
We're asking for your help on this.
I understand that, and I understand this. We are not, you knew this. When I ran, I said we are going to agree a lot, and we're going to disagree a lot. I told you that. And I'm telling you on this one, I think he deserves a chance, okay? And I know that means we disagree. But I believe that we have a lot of work to do in our city. And I think we at least should give each other chances to agree and disagree. And I understand that on this.
But
there's a lot we have to do.
It's practically impossible to prove racial profiling and racism, and you're talking about what Damon Martinez will bring to the position. You know that it's already there. And we're telling you, like, whether or not a judge and lawyers would be able to prove that he was responsible for the racism in that
We believe he was.
I know the second part is, I'm telling you, if you think there's racial profiling in APD, that's the discussion to have. And we ended this program, and I believe I'm doing a lot.
You are bringing racial profiling to APD. You yourself are bringing it there with these two appointees.
Okay, that's where I do not believe that is the case, and I think everyone here is spoken to that.
Thank you.
Is there a protester?